The feeling that these older gyms can have is a lot different than the feeling of modern gyms. It's like the soul of them, you know?
Do you remember the first time you walked into a climbing gym? Do you remember what that was like to be inside a climbing gym? That is how we kick off this conversation today on the Struggle Climbing Show. Welcome back, y'all. I'm glad that you're here. And today we've got Andrew Bisharat and Chris Kalous from the Run Out podcast joining us, along with a surprise guest who pops in around the middle of this conversation. And what we are exploring today is this intersection, this inflection point, if you will, that seems to be happening in the climbing community with regard to the original old school, crusty, grimy, sandbagged climbing gyms that came up around the 90s, and now the new, modern, very well-funded mega gyms that have mega saunas and mega yoga studios and mega juice bars. And is one of those better than the other with regard to preparing climbers for the outdoors or building community or just the history of climbing? I mean, there's certainly pros and cons to be explored for both, and that's what we do in this conversation. And I even put Chris Kalous on the other side of the debate club team and make him argue for the mega gym. And we had a really good time on this, lots of laughs, but also I think an important conversation to be having. And the reason this episode, the topic of this episode came around, is that my beloved, sweet, old school, grimy, crusty local climbing gym, Rock Sport, here in Louisville, Kentucky, closed its doors recently after 30 plus years of being open. And Rock Sport introduced climbing to thousands and thousands of people and then prepared many of us for getting outside on rock. And so we enter into this conversation talking about what that gym has meant to me, as well as the early experiences that Andrew and Chris had at their climbing gyms, both as members and also they both worked at climbing gyms. So we kick off this conversation there, and then we explore what's happening and what might be happening if we kind of play things out further into the dystopian future that Chris Kalous paints for us with regard to where climbing gyms and just climbing in general might be going. And then on the backside, I'll tell you a little bit more about what has been happening here in my local area. And this episode, by the way, is being brought to you ad-free because I just thought that this was a meaningful conversation to have. I didn't want to break it up with any ads. Of course, if you are a Patreon member or Apple subscriber, you get all of your episodes without ads. And if you would like to support me so I can keep making shows like this, you can learn more over at Patreon. I'll just put a link in the show notes there. And I'll share a little bit more on the backside, but let's just go ahead and kick things off with Andrew Bisharat and Chris Kalous. Andrew, do you recall the first climbing gym that you went to as a climber? Do you remember your first day in a climbing gym?
I sure do remember my first climbing gym. I went to a climbing gym in Stamford, Connecticut called Go Vertical. And I met some very influential and formidable people at that gym, some of whom have remained lifelong friends.
How old were you?
I was probably 18 or 19 at that time. I started climbing in the gunks. So the first time I went climbing was outside, and it was my 16-year-old, or I was 16 years old, and my high school girlfriend at the time got me a climbing lesson, and it was up at the gunks. And so the first route I ever climbed was this route called Horseman, which is like a 5.5 right on Carriage Road. And I was pretty much hooked after that. I was like really psyched on climbing. I found this gym that was in Stamford, Connecticut. I grew up in New York in the Westchester County area. And Stamford was about, 45 minutes from my house. It's actually cool because
did you hopped on Metro North to get out there, or you're driving?
I would drive. Yeah. Okay. You'd just drive over.
Got it.
It was cool because my grandfather was a really famous architect and he designed like some prominent buildings that were part of the skyline of Stamford. And so it was like this cool connection for me to be able to like go to the city, see my grandfather's buildings, like in the skyline, and then also like fall in love with this gym, Go Vertical. And at this gym, I met Nate Gold, Biggie. He's like a character in Rampage and all kinds of, early climbing films.
That's where I recognize it. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, he's an amazing, fun, like amazing dude, like just like one of the warmest, best people I've ever met. And his dad was also, big time climber there. Met him. I met Colette McInerney.
Nice.
Who else? Yeah, just Carolyn Treadway was also part of the gym at that time. Probably met Josh Lowell and some other folks. So it was cool. It was like a classic gym. I have one photo of me climbing back then. That's like I'm on like a wearing like the craziest gear, like climbing on a top rope, and it just looks like it doesn't look like gyms today. It looks like an old gym. But they've since gone out of business.
Oh, they did.
No,
okay.
Yeah, they've gone out of business, and of course, there's like a million more gyms in the New York area now. I haven't lived there since basically since I was 18, so I don't really keep in touch with the New York scene, but
Sure.
yeah, but that was like the one gym, and then there was also Chelsea some whatever. It was like there was like one gym in New York City, but it wasn't really a climbing gym. It was like a fitness center with like a climbing wall.
Right.
And so Go Vertical was like kind of like the one true climbing gym like in the New York area that if you were in that area, that's where you went.
Chris, let me ask you the same question. Do you recall the first time you walked into a climbing gym?
I can't exactly. I can sort of narrow it down.
Shocker.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I started climbing well before commercial gyms.
Mhm.
And I think the first artificial wall I climbed on, if you will, was the back of this building at Lincoln, New Zealand, on the South Island, which is outside of Christchurch, at the university there. I went as an exchange student or whatever, study abroad rather, not really exchange, but yeah. And there was this like cinder block wall with a bunch of rocks glued to it, like classic old school, and just like vertical with like little pebbles and little edges. And that was, I think, the first time I climbed like on an artificial wall, which would have been about 1990 would be my guess. Yeah, because that's when I was there. Somewhere in there, I also went to this gym, or like early on, maybe not that early, but I remember going to a gym in Crystal Lake, Illinois, called the North Wall. That was an early gym experience for me. And
this was a dedicated climbing gym?
Yeah, and this was an actual climbing gym. I don't know if it's there still, but let's see, North Wall Rock Gym. Oh yeah, still there. Looks like
nice.
Still there.
I love it.
And it was like, a classic kind of like painted plywood with holes stuck to it. But another early gym experience, and this is all still there, was at the Lakeshore Sport and Fitness in Chicago. And this is actually a famous indoor wall because it's like 8 stories tall, and it goes up the back. Yeah. It's an entrepreneur, right? It's Andrew will know what I'm talking about. It had like
I know what you're
the
talking
modular.
About.
Yeah, it had the modular
hexagonal,
like yep. It was built by entrepreneur, so it was very early. And my girlfriend at the time, when she lived in Chicago, had managed it. And so we went one time when we were there, and there's like 4. It's like maybe 2 or 3 ropes wide. It's about as wide as, or a little wider than an elevator, because it literally goes up the back of the elevator shaft, and it's huge. I mean, it's still there. They're still. I just saw that you could book it for corporate events and things like that. I don't think it's much of a climber's climbing wall anymore because it's pretty much dead vertical with like a couple little roofs, and obviously they aren't getting new holds for the entrepreneur unless somebody like pours some custom of those modular. And basically, to explain to people listening, that the wall had these kind of hexagon shaped holes, and that's what you would put these hexagon shaped holes in, and so then it would be flush with the rest of the wall, if you can imagine that. Like it was like an inch deep hole, and then when you put the hole in there, the hole would be flush with the wall. And I think there was also, you could jib and put stuff on the outside, but primarily that's what you were climbing on, were these holds that were modular to the system. And And yeah, they haven't poured one of those in 30 years. So I can imagine that thing's got some greasy ass holds on it. But yeah, so it was, and then there's one more experience, and these are not necessarily first, but they were early, is that there was also, and I was just trying to find it, and I found this this other mountain project thread about somebody trying to, like, I remember going to this gym, what was it called? And there's various, maybe it was called The Shop, but it was in this old theater. And it was, I think it might have been the Southtown Theater, this actually quite famous theater that had been around since like the 40s or whatever. And it was kind of like they'd sort of put it on the stage area, and then you could literally go up and just climb vertically across the bottom of the ceiling, like just straight out vertically until there was like something to clip, and then you'd lower. I was there once. Yeah, just horizontally. You're just like fully horizontal on an actual ceiling. Yeah. And that, like, I remember it just kicked the shit out of me because, I mean, I was like a trad climber that climbed at Lumpy Ridge or whatever. But I remember going to there like on a date with this girl that I wanted to go out with in Chicago. So
just the kind of necessities, the mother of invention spirit of those early climbing gyms, and just the character of them, and just like, all right, let's build something on an elevator shaft. Let's build something on the roof of this, this building here. Early climbing gyms, people we've got, I don't know, it's like Randy Levitt were like cementing holds inside parking garages out west and this kind of thing. And so it really kind of grew and sprang from that. And Rock Sport, my local climbing gym here in Louisville, that's now shut its doors, really came from that kind of 1990s era. And the guy who started it, Rob, who's this crusty climber and, real outdoor Red River Gorge climber, was also an engineer. And he built this whole thing himself and used massive steel pipes to weld this custom frame into this building that he leased and he didn't even own. And like, the walls are epic. It's mega. I mean, he just was such a visionary at the time. The towers that he built and the roofs that he built on this lead cave. There isn't a slab in the only slab in the entire gym is the top out of the bouldering area that is terrifyingly tall. I mean, I'm talking like 3 or 4 bolts high compared to the lead climbing area is where you top out, and then you can like get some slab. And so everything was like wildly sandbagged and hard. But his motto for the gym was, it's the gym for climbers. And basically the motto was like, we're going to prepare people for outdoors. We're going to make this hard, so when you get outside, you're prepared to climb. And I loved that, because when I moved here from Los Angeles, I got smacked at this gym. But then when I started going out to the Red, I was much better prepared for it as a result. And so I want to explore that, but I will talk about my first gym experience first to close the loop here. And there's crossover on the Venn diagram with you, Chris, because the first climbing gym that I ever went to was Rock Creation in Santa Monica, California, where you used to work, although you were not working there at the time. But I was new. I mean, I started climbing, as you guys know, and far later than I wished I had. I was 30 years old when I walked into that gym and had so much fun. And it was the first time I was kind of quote unquote exercising, but not thinking about all the other bullshit stresses of life. Like, it just fully took my mind off of everything else, and I was fully focused in the moment. And I just got bit by the bug. And very shortly thereafter, went out to the Needles. No, not to the Needles. I'm sorry, to Talk Eats and Suicide Rock with some friends, and did my first multi-pitch and trad climbing. Then went to Joshua Tree, and of course, there's some crags around LA that I started going to, like Echo Cliffs and Malibu Creek and all of that. But all of that started and sprung from Rock Creation, which was another kind of old school. They did some updates after a few years after I became a member, but it was, kind of dumpy and right. It was kind of small and crusty, and was the only gig in town until Sender One opened up over by LAX. Chris, when did you work there, and do you know when it opened originally?
It opened around 95, 96, because I opened it. I mean, I was there on the crew that opened, because I was working down in Costa Mesa Rock Creation, which I have to say is probably one of the older surviving gyms, because that's an old that predated the LA one by quite a few years. Nice. And then they moved up there. And then there was a third Rock Creation in Salt Lake City, which I don't know if that's still there. But Yeah, so it was around 95, 96 because it wasn't. I left LA in 96 and we had opened it maybe the previous year. So I'm gonna hang my hat on 95. But I want to say something about the Rock Creations that I think is interesting in the evolution. Is those were the first gyms I knew of, and there was 3 of them, or eventually 3. There was 2 that opened together. That actually were, I feel like they were very much the first modern gyms that I knew of, in the sense that they actually, they you know, by comparison today, they were gyms for climbers, but they built them and then they created a climbing community around their gyms. They weren't just for people who already climb, like we're going to find the climbers and then they'll come to this gym. They had a really good model. I think that's been built on and expanded on, but a lot of the roots of all gyms are in there, of like, let's create a clientele. Let's, you know, do the birthday parties. We had this, you know, we had this like introductory course. It was like Rock On or some shit. And with that introductory course, you got a free like month, right? And it was super cheap. You know, you could come in for one night and take this introductory course where you learn how to blade stuff for like $30. And and there was like this kind of social element to it that was part of it, where if you wanted to, we had a moment where everybody could exchange numbers if you felt like it. So you could come back and climb with this person that also just learned how to belay. And it was this like really, really great conduit to just fill the gym up, you know, and then at the end of your period, you got like some discount on a year membership. And it was I just watched so many people go from that to this. And in that
like
gym, that's all
analog Tinder.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What relationships are you responsible for? How many hookups, how many little young crushers are out there right now because of your introductory Rock On course?
A lot, actually. And actually, famously on the Normacast, we figured out that Brad Gobright and I, like, him as a child doing a birthday party, just missed each other probably in Costa Mesa by like a year. But it was his introduction, was going to Costa Mesa at a birthday party, you know? I mean, you do too. You interview so many great climbers who went to a birthday party at a climbing gym, and that was was where they caught that. But the thing about the LA gym is that I'm sure it seems kind of like run down now, even with the update, but it was very modern. And it was that like classic thing where, you know, it's still in that, it's like in an office building practically.
Right.
You can't tell it's there really, the space. And so many people walked in and were just like, what the fuck is going on in here? And that was like our job, was to be like, well, come with me. Like, I'll show you what the fuck is going on in here. And it was that era because nobody really knew anything about climbing gyms. And, you know, and there was like, I remember one time we're walking around, and speaking of hookups, you know, we see everybody climbing. There's like guys in capris and their shirts are off, and, you know, it's LA. So they're all, you know, right, industry people. They're pretty well kempt, you know, and, you know, we finally are done with the tour, and he's like, if I didn't know better, I'd think this was kind of a gay hangout. I was like, and I was like, looked around, and I'm like, yeah, I think it might be. So it was pretty funny. But yeah, and then, you know, we could talk later about the celebrity nexus of rock creation. West LA, it's technically in West LA, but yeah, Santa Monica, you know, because people, you know, we would have like movie stars and all sorts of people coming in all the time because it was the only game in town. Yeah. So anyway, so they were modern at the time, and it's hard to remember that.
Yeah, the Hollywood era of rock creation really ended when I walked in the door, and they were like, "Oh, that's it.
Jump the shark. This place is lame."
To close the loop on kind of our early experiences there, so I joined rock creation and then was a member there for a long time. That's when I met people that I got outside with, and I had a coach there that taught me about how to train and. Yeah, I mean, it was only a handful of blocks from my house. I lived in Santa Monica, but you're right. I guess it was technically maybe considered Brentwood or West LA, but it was in this little office park, basically. And the gym here, Rock Sport, I think it was like a requirement in the 90s. If you opened a gym, it had to have the word rock or
Rock
vertical.
in it, yeah.
So it's like, it's all very confusing. But Rocksport is in an industrial park. And so like you really have to market to get people out there because there's just nobody coming by there and being like, oh, there's a gym, which is what I did at Recreation. I was a member of LA Fitness, which is a large, just like treadmill and do like weight machines type thing that was next door to Recreation. And so like I was going to my normal gym and I was like, well, what's this place over here? And I walked in and it was that experience like you were talking about, Chris, where I was like, what the hell's this? And somebody was like, well, let me show you. And they didn't even charge me a day pass. They were like, come on in, here's some shoes. Like, why don't you climb and see what you think? And
that was kind of our game. It's always been the game there. There's actually was like right around behind it. There's a strip club too, a real high end strip club. It's a
Staples
sort of
now, I think. I don't know if the strip clubs are anymore. So, Andrew, I've got some trivia for you to try to take it into kind of what we want to talk about the task at hand here, because we could just take a trip down memory lane, crusty climbing gym memory lane, and that might be fun. We'll do it as a bonus episode. But I want to get into some of the landscape of where we're at now currently with regard to gym cultures and gym business. And so, Andrew, can you take a stab at how many climbing gyms are currently in the United States?
I am going to say 960.
Chris, do you want to take a crack at numbers?
Like commercial climbing gyms.
I don't know. Just
however you want
gyms.
to count them. Yeah. I would say there's 1,272.
I mean, not my basement. My basement doesn't count, although I have a better setup.
Well, there's like the rec center wall, and there's the,
not to flex.
There's different kinds.
So yeah, I mean, I've got some statistics here that I pulled off of Google, and so I'm not sure how accurate these are. But I also had a conversation with Garnet Moore, who's the executive director of the Climbing Wall Association, and a fantastic guy and a great resource. And so I've got a bunch of information from him here as well. And so I'm kind of combining a lot of these. But right now, kind of best estimate for gyms. I guess because maybe there isn't truly an overarching governing body in gym culture. It's still like pretty wild west for gyms in like climbing gym culture is somewhere between 600 and 800 climbing gyms in the United States right now. Now the question becomes, how many of them are independent climbing gyms? So one location versus chains or corporate climbing gym, or more kind of, it's hard to pin down like the best term here because corporate isn't quite the right term, but we'll try to do it by location. So how, on a percentage basis of those gyms in the US, the 600 to 800, how many are single location versus how many are multiple location?
My guess is single locations are probably 70%. Are we doing percentage?
Yeah, percentage. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say 70%, probably 30% are, the mega gyms.
I was thinking like 60% for the single location gyms.
Yeah. Again, not like a super specific number here, but what I was able to find, and this was corroborated by Garnet, was 70%, Andrew. So you right on the head
nice
of that. But it is shifting. So it is starting to shift more towards slowly, not like, in any sort of kind of significant growth curve or shift here, but it is starting to shift more towards multiple locations. But what I found to be most interesting from what Garnet shared was that the vast majority are either single or like maybe 2 or 3. It's a very small percentage, less than 5%, that have more than 5 locations, and only a few chains, a few kind of brands, if you will, or companies have more than 10 locations. So it's still very independent, if you will, this kind of climbing landscape, which I think speaks to how young, if you will, or nascent the commercial climbing gym industry is. If we're talking about the oldest gyms like Vertical World from Seattle there, or Portland Rock Gym, which I had a chance to visit last year. I shot some videos out there and met with their owner, Gary, who's just a fantastic guy. It's still a culture of like climbers who are really psyched and then decide to open a gym, more so than maybe what would be, as Garnet kind of used a metaphor, somebody who would buy like a franchise of Subway restaurants or McDonald's restaurants and wasn't a foodie and didn't want to make burgers themselves or whatever. They just wanted to own a business. We're still far more in this independent state. but it's starting to shift. And so we are seeing, the movement gyms or Touchstone, Central Rock Gym, these kinds of bigger, I think still very much rooted in climbing and climbing culture, but, kind of bigger corporate, well-funded machines, if you will, are starting to expand. And, what does that mean? So I don't know what that means. Again, it's not like some big gym came into my town here and pushed out rock sport, but I've spent a lot of time in the big, shiny, very nice gyms that have saunas and yoga studios and juice bars. And I've spent more time in the more kind of crusty rock sport, recreation-esque climbing gyms. And I think they both offer something. And so I just want to open it up to you guys to see, like what's your relationship with gym now? Obviously, you guys have a very well-known and I think fairly successful program, Crag to Gym program that you've become quite famous for. So you've single-handedly
No bugs.
been driving a lot of people from the dirt to the carpet. But yeah, like what's your experience now today with climbing gyms? And then let's talk about kind of this tale of two gyms, if you will, the big well-funded ones versus these smaller independent ones that still are dominating the landscape, to be clear.
I was just curious as you're talking. So there's literally no climbing gyms now in Louisville?
No, so there's one. There's a bouldering only gym, and that's another trend. More than half of all the gyms that have been opening in recent years are bouldering only. And so there's a bouldering only gym called Climb Nulu that's been around for a long time. Not as long as Rock Sport, but.
And what about Lexington? What's the gym scene like there?
Lexington has, I'm not sure about multiple locations. They have one very well-funded gym called LEF that is not a chain to my knowledge, but has big walls. It's more kind of a Sender One vibe. It's a great facility. And that's only 45 minutes from the Red. But Lexington's a much smaller city than Louisville, although they've got, a big college culture there. So do we in Louisville. So it's kind of odd that we haven't had the mega gym come in. There's always been rumblings of it, and maybe it's yet to happen. But Garnet was sharing that over the past couple of years, it seemed like there had been a bit of an explosion in climbing, not just in climbing gyms, but also in the sport, the growth of people entering climbing as a sport or a pastime or a hobby or whatever. And while that is true, what Garnet has reported is that there's been, over the last 2 years, a leveling off of that, a leveling off in gym expansion, as well as just in people entering the sport. And that's put some stress now on gyms, which might be what we see in some gyms are either struggling with revenue or having a hard time staying open.
Well, wait, those guys must be like slapping their heads with the whole gym to crag thing. It's like, what are we're getting rid of we're like showing our clientele that instead of coming here 3 days a week, they should go outside. Like that just seems like a dumb business idea. So the crag to gym movement may save the industry
This is why you're here. You're here to save my gym. Well, too late for my gym, maybe, but
but we can save a few if we just get people off the cliffs into the gym. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that stuck out as you were talking earlier, Ryan, just about like the connection between the gym and the outdoors, which was like so embedded into the culture of the gym that closed, was so important, I think, to the early gym scene. And like, I was just thinking back to, I texted you guys just now a photo of me at Go Vertical, which I just found, but
amazing.
Just thinking of like, the culture, talking to Nate Gold's dad, Dave Gold, and like, it was all about the gunks. Like everyone who was in the gym was talking about going outside and climbing. And like the people who were the heroes of the gym were not like the ones who were climbing the hardest in the gym. They were the ones who were leading shit out in the real world and then coming into the gym and talking, giving their like war stories of, whatever route they led that was like 511X or the gunks or whatever. And those were like the badasses. And those are the people I looked up to. And like beyond that, like this like crusty old gym had photos of, I like very distinctly remember a picture, like this big poster of Sarah Torre in the gym, just like a janky La Sportiva or whatever photo of Sarah Torre. And I was like, it blew my mind that people climb that. Like I'd know, it was just like a brand new climber who had no idea like what Serratore was, what mountain climbing was, what climbing was. I saw that photo and I was like, holy shit, that's so beautiful. That's so amazing. That's so insane that this, whatever I'm doing here could, one day lead to something, adventures like that. It's like just like a very like small little window like out into raw adventure. And I think that has really been diminished and lost in like the Mick climbing gym, era where, gyms have the model of the business model that works and they know like the setting that works. They know the grades that work. They know when it's appropriate to have the birthday parties and when it's appropriate to have the, Jim DeCraig, learn to belay, learn to lead belay or whatever, the women's nights, this night, that night, they've figured out like how to do all the things that make a gym like a fun place and a successful business. But it's missing that like, just that like underlying kind of simmering, burning culture for just using this as like a stepping stone to this greater world of rock climbing. All of that gets like, I think a little bit lost in just, the kind of machinations of running a successful business. And, I think that's why these like grungy places that we're talking about, we have such affection for and why we, look back on them fondly and like have kind of formative, I'm an outdoor climber, but it's not because I spent, the first 3 years of my life mostly climbing in a gym. It's because of that gym culture at that time that was like so connected to the outdoor scene that allowed me to just like, spend 2 hours a day getting my crimp strength up on the bouldering wall, but being like, I'm doing this all with a reason. It's because I want to become a really good outdoor rock climber who can, lead 511 X routes in the gunks like Mike. Mike was, I forget his last name, but Mike was like, I remember Mike as like the badass that we all looked up to. He was like climbing hard trad routes in the gunks. And that's what we wanted to do.
Well, I'm glad you make this point because it now gives me an opportunity to have Chris be devil's advocate for the modern climbing gym, which is just a wonderful juxtaposition that I'm excited to put you in. So Chris, counterpoint to Andrew, which is a point really well made, which is that the culture of these kind of grungy original gyms was about the psyche of getting outside and having these epic experiences. Obviously, that still happens a lot around, I think, in climbing gyms, but I don't have a statistic from Garnet on this one, but I would hazard a guess that more climbers now are indoor climbers. It's not the indoor climbing experience is not a means to an outdoor adventure, but that it is the adventure itself is just happening within the walls of that gym. And you're going to have to now make an argument for that.
It's funny you're asking me this, but it's fine. I'm totally happy that people go into the gym and stay in the gym. But and I agree with Andrew that the zeitgeist was like, this is a thing that we're going to create for you because you can't be outside all the time. And it was a substitute, and everybody had that attitude. Like, yeah, this is fine because this is where I live and I'm going to go do this, but this is a substitute. That's no longer the case. I will make a case for the giant gyms. We don't have one around here. We had a bouldering gym in Carbondale. It's gone. When I go down to Denver or to Boulder, or I end up in Salt Lake and I climb in one of these mega gyms, I really have almost the same feeling I have when I go to a new crag. Like, I walk in, I look around, I'm just like, holy shit, there's so many climbs that look awesome in here. And I just got to get my shit on and warm up as best I can before I just start sailing up one of these giant walls on those giant jugs, which is an experience that's actually kind of rare outside, to climb, like a super steep, 11A or something like that. I mean, the red being the exception, but around here, it's not that kind of steepness on those kind of holds is kind of rare. And so, you know, I get it. Like, I'm always excited. Andrew and I don't remember what that was, but we went to it was like one of the biggest in the country at the time. It's in Aurora or some shit in Denver. And we couldn't believe it. Like, we were just like, Jesus Christ, look at this place. And it felt like going from the bouldering to the lead wall was like, you know, changing crags. Like, we needed to pack everything up and hike for a while to get over to where the bouldering is, kind of a thing. And I get it. And it's like shiny, it's convenient. And like you said, it has all the nights, and it's become, you know, like I was talking about Rock Creation being this, like, you know, we were joked about this matchmaking place. And anytime you put, you know, younger, fit people together, that's going to happen. But I think it's like more on the table that this is like, you know, a club. It's like going out for a lot of people, because we're getting less and less people, young people, who want to go out and drink and, you know, do all these nasty things. And I think this is like a wild substitute where it's like, yeah, you know, we're here to meet people, and we're here to have this community. And it's still, I mean, you feel it when you're there. It's still a community, because you see people like that climb every night, Thursday night. Oh, hey, what's up? Yeah. Or we'll be here Thursday night. To us, it doesn't seem like the same thing we had as far as like this outdoor community that would relocate to the gym, which actually Rock Creation in LA was kind of a really interesting version of that in the middle of this giant city. But like, you know, sitting out front with Kevin Thaw and smoking cigs and talking about Yosemite, you know, like what we were going to do this season or whatever, was like a big part of that place. But yeah, so I mean, I've like loved going to those gyms. I don't get sick of them because I don't live by one. And I get excited when we have a day to do that in Boulder and go to, you know, like one of these gyms that people endlessly complain about if you live there. Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. It's this and that and everything else. And I'm just like stoked. So, and it's like we wanted that in a way. Like, Rock Creation isn't tall enough, actually. And you feel it after a while that it's like pretty limited. And that's all they've been trying to do, is just keep expanding that. And yeah, I mean, it's sick, like, to go to those gyms. Like, I get it, you know?
Yeah, I'll echo that as well, because most of what I know of climbing gyms that I frequent are the smaller, independent, kind of older, you know, maybe we're cutting edge when they opened their doors, but that was 20 or 30 years ago. So Rock Creation first, and then Rock Sport here. And so when I do visit one of the more modern gyms, I think I have that same experience you were just talking about, where I'm just like freaking smiling from ear to ear, and it's a kid in a candy store, and there's all these colorful volumes, and you know, the dopamine is like on overdrive. It's like I just jumped into an iPhone and I'm just running around with it. You know, everything's just so nice and clean and
Totally
organized, and there isn't a single piece of tape on a single route. You know, everything's monochromatic, and it's all just beautiful. And I experienced that at Portland Rock Gym in Beaverton, which is a massive facility, and they have a huge lead building. It's a full building. You walk through a different set of doors to go lead climbing. They have auto blaze that, I mean, it has to be 70 feet, you know, routes, and massive overhangs, and it's just so wicked, and probably a couple $1 million of holds just in that building. And then you walk to a different building, and it's the biggest bouldering gym you've ever seen, and it's slab and volumes and overhung, and they've got the Olympic wall, and they've got the speed wall. They just held like USA climbing, you know, qualifications there. And so, I mean, it's amazing. And by the way, owned by Gary Rawl, who is like, you know, original, like great friends with Alan Watts, old school Smith Rock climber, opened up one of the oldest climbing gyms in the world. And so it's this interesting collision of old and new. And some of the old guard are ushering in the new, and then some are just kind of coming in and saying, okay, there's an opportunity here. And so that's what I want to explore right now, which is, if we just play out the theoretical that isn't quite happening. So it's not, this is not a guarantee, but if we play out this theoretical that more money and kind of corporatization, if you will come into our sport, and maybe 10 years from now or 20 years from now, we do have an LA Fitness or a Planet Fitness type, you know, there's 3 in every town, and it's all standardized kind of setting and holds and grading. And we have pushed the independent gym, the little grungy, grimy, taped routes, shoe rubber covered holds, sandbagged grades to the periphery. What, if anything, will be lost from that with regard to climbing culture, or how prepared people might be, or just what people's experience is and relationship is with climbing in general? Let's play out this Mad Max hypothetical here. Andrew, what do you think?
I mean, one thing that comes to mind is I think grades could potentially be like a real, it could have like, there could be downstream consequences for more and more people being introduced to grades through gyms, as opposed to, you know, climbing a 510 at Talk Heats versus climbing a 510 at your gym is a totally different experience. And so I worry about the way that people will kind of internalize what they believe to be the correct rating system, and then retroactively, you know, upgrading routes that are outdoors that are supposed to be the, you know, the benchmark grades or whatever.
Could that happen though? Play that out, because grades are consensus and not set in stone. Will ultimately all the original 5.9s and 5.10s be 5.12s in 20 years? Potentially.
I mean, consensus is, you know, born of the community who's consenting to the grade. So if the community is, you know, all steeped in just gym culture and tradition and whatever the gym grades are, then I could certainly see that affecting, you know, outdoor routes. And then we've already seen that to some degree. I mean, the reason people call places like the Gunks or Talk Heats or Yosemite sandbagged is because they're fucking hard compared to what they experience in the gym. But those are the correct grades. You know, the thing that you climb in the gym is not the correct grade by and large. It's not always true, of course.
Yeah, and the argument, I guess, made for that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but this is all just like kind of hearsay, but the point that some make is that, okay, if we make indoor grades as hard as outdoor grades, we'll lose members because they won't feel a progression, and progression feels good. And so let's make things softer so they, you know, advance through the grades, and that's better for revenue.
I've heard that argument, and I've never bought that. Like the capitalist mindset that like is like, if only we can like tell people that they climb 512A even though they're 510D climbers, then we'll just make, you know, 10% more profits.
Yeah.
It's just like, it doesn't make sense on some level. Like, I don't know, it falls apart. I just think that the nature of setting, the nature of like setting an anthropomorphic route where all the holds are kind of perfectly spaced to like what an average human body is, you know, the nature of a setting situation where you're like, oh, you know, this route needs a left foot here in order to be fun. It'll be a bad left foot because it'll make the move hard, but we still need a left foot. Like that just breaks down in real rock situations. There's not a left foot because the person, you know, geology didn't make a left foot there, and it's just an awkward, hard move, and it's doable. It's doable at whatever grade, but it's just not set to be like, you know, to be ergonomic, to be kind of fit to your body. And so that's where the real like kind of breakdown is. And so the more people just become accustomed to like, oh, I just follow the, you know, the blue holds or the blue colors, and I go up the wall, and, you know, I put my hands on the white spots and my feet on the black spots. And, you know, that's like, that like breaks down on some level when you climb outdoors, especially in like a techie area or slabby area, or there's like crack climbing or something like that. And then the grades just don't even make sense to a person that's their only foundation for climbing.
Yeah, Chris, anything to add to whether it's the grade discussion or just essentially the culture in general on what might be gained or lost with the more modernization of climbing gyms?
Well, as Andrew was talking, I just came up with a theory that those old crummy climbing gyms are the problem. these like gyms that were born to be this conduit to outdoor climbing are what are impeding the Crag to Gym program. And once those are all eliminated, and the only experience is the mega gym. Are you Wall-E fans?
I love Wall-E. Yeah.
Okay, so the mega gym is the spaceship, and the old gyms are the junkyard Earth. Okay, and so the people who want the mega gym, they're never going to want to go outside, and they're never going to be trained to go outside, and they're never going to be ready to go outside, and they're not going to go outside. And it's going to create this it's going to be like that spaceship where everybody's, floating around on those little seats and
but are so happy.
Yeah, they're so happy, but the belay bots come up, and the belay bot shows up and gives you your belay, and then you have your like Andrew said, the hold is there, and the grade is like what you wanted, and all that's going to break down outside. So we need to get rid of all these like crappy gyms, is what I'm getting at, because I mean, literally the main complaint in outdoor climbing that you're going to hear like literally on a daily basis is it's crowded. Too many people here. I wanted to get on that route, but there was all these people. They had the top rope on there forever and ever and ever. And then the buddy top roped, and then I never got a chance to get on it. And blah, blah, blah. No parking. And that's like the thing that happens all the time. And so it's like, I think if we get rid of all these crusty gyms, it's going to be for the good it's going to be for the greater good. We're going to have to sacrifice them for the greater good.
Well, this is perfect timing for our surprise guest of this conversation to join the chat. We've got, last time I surprised you guys with Alex Honnold. This time I brought a stronger climber to join us here. That's Andrew Gearing, friend of the show and a friend of yours, Andrew Gearing.
Dude, where did your dreads go?
Yeah, I was gonna say you got a haircut, dog.
And my kids pulled them all out.
Oh man. They just fell out from stress.
Dude, you look like a fucking suit and tie, like Wall Street motherfucker right now.
I'm trying my best.
I just did like
fit. It's a hard box for me.
He's so clean.
I read
cut.
the name and I'm looking at the video. I read the name and looked at the video and read the name. I'm like, all right, that is him.
You look good, man.
For the listener, Andrew is a Louisville guy, Red River Gorge crusher, been a friend of mine for quite some time. And of course, Chris and Andrews as well. They spend summers out in Rifle. We've got a bunch of kids that you're going to hear in the background at any given time. I figured it would be past bedtime, Andrew. And yet,
well, technically it is, but it's, a hard night for bedtime.
It's all good. So
Jen's super mom back there, so we're gonna get there.
Andrew and Jen are just like just a couple of amazing human beings and incredible crushers and first ascensionists, and we could do an entire episode just with them. But the reason I've invited Andrew to join our conversation here, gentlemen, is because I've been lamenting the closure of my beloved rock sport, which closed its doors about a week ago. But Andrew is joining with some news here. Andrew, what can you tell us about the future of rock sport here in Louisville?
Well, it's going to go on for as long as we can make it go. We're reopening the doors on Saturday, so we're excited to see what we can do and give it our all, pour our whole heart and soul into it, and see what happens. We want to make sure Louisville has a good ropes gym and has a good solid community, and they have somewhere to go and practice what they love. So.
Man, I'm so psyched. I can't tell you. So this has been a real emotional roller coaster for me, you guys, Andrew and Chris, as this is like the gym announced that it was closing, and then just out of nowhere, this fantastic news came out that Andrew and some friends who are members of the gym found a way to keep it going. So Andrew, what can you tell us about this? Like, first of all, I'd actually love to hear your history with rock sport, because the gym goes back 30 years, but I think you go back about as long with that gym.
Yeah, pretty close. Maybe the first time I climbed there was like 1998, 99, something like that. Yeah, and that's where I trained for my competition climbing days, and that's where I trained for Red River Gorge, and it always held a special place. There's always been a lot of just really amazing people that go to that gym. So it's a crazy feeling now, being like the caretaker of this place that's sculpted who I am.
It's freaking awesome, man. I'm so excited for you and your partners, and also just for the Louisville community, because Rock Sport's been such an important part of the climbing community here and just like throughout Kentucky. So really excited. So let me pose to you the same question that I've been, Chris and Andrew and I have been talking about, which is, where does the kind of grimy, crusty, sandbagged climbing gym fit into modern culture? And what have you and the other guys that are going to be taking over Rock Sport and opening its doors here very shortly, where do you land on that? How much will you continue the legacy of Rock Sport versus modernize?
There's some aspects that just maybe can't be modernized. Wall designs back then were one thing, and we can change the way route setting is on those walls to some degree, to kind of bring it into the future. But I think there was always like a small place for those grungy little try hard places. But then there's also just like the feeling that these older gyms can have is a lot different than the feeling of modern gyms. It's like the soul of them.
Yeah, well, I'm like really excited to see what you and the new team do with Rock Sport, because I think you're gonna thread the needle of really honoring its very kind of old school, hardcore, like true core climber provenance, if you will, but also wanting to make it, you're a dad yourself, and making it accessible to kids and the adaptive community that also had great roots at Rock Sport over the years. But then what does that mean for you, Chris? Chris, you're just kind of talking about how we're going to be moving towards the modernization to keep climbers from going outside. What is Andrew Gearing and his friends now doing to your grand plan?
So I don't know if you missed my Wall-E analogy, Andrew, but I compared the big giant modern gym to the spaceship, where everybody never has to lift a finger. You don't have to thread your gree. You don't have to do much of anything. And then at the other side is the planet where Wall-E is, that's completely destroyed. And obviously you got to thread that needle. But also, we're talking about, some of this is the impetus of this conversation, is like a little bit of the demise of these gyms. And therefore, as a business, I'd be interested to hear about, like, you don't want to end up with the robo belay and all sorts of modernizations that I'm sure are coming down the pike with gyms. But also, you're going to have to like make it an appealing place for like new climbers. And because one thing I'll say about these older gyms, and I felt it back then, is that there was an elitism that went to them. And I remember walking into gyms as not much of a gym climber and I'll say a fairly good and experienced outdoor climber, and being really intimidated by the scene, because you had that feeling of like, oh, these guys are all super tough and they all know each other, and they're, in their gritty corner being gritty. And I don't necessarily belong. So it's an interest, it's like there's good and bad with like trying to make it a welcoming place. And part of that is making it comfortable. And I think that's where those big gyms have like just gone whole hog, like, we are going to make this the most interfaced, comfortable experience, lattes and juice bars. And we don't want you to trip on anything on your way to the wall. So I don't know what your thoughts are as far as modernizing it in that sense, or just making sure the vibe is open to everybody.
Yeah, well, I think for us, the vibe has been very good. There's already a good established community like that. It's not like, I wouldn't say that the last several years of its running. So it's not really been like an elitist type place like that. Maybe in its deeper roots, there might have been some of that like far back in the 90s and such. But yeah, I think, just having a place where people can come with a good feeling and, be together and everybody's happy. And, for me, especially, as you mentioned, having my own kids, like having a place for the sport to grow from that level up, is definitely big on my radar. Just making it welcome, making it family friendly. We'll have a scream room maybe for the 3-year-olds, just gotta tuck them in a quiet place. And they can be supervised. Like silent disco style supervision,
Padded rooms for the 3-year-olds.
And big earmuffs.
Climbing gyms are great for that. I've never met anybody more like kind of chill or unflappable as you, Andrew. I remember we were out at the chocolate factory once, and I was interviewing Chris Sharma, who was out there for Oktoberfest, and like all of your kids were having all of the meltdowns, and like you're just like, all right, well, come on over here, I'll help you out. And
I remember that actually. I remember that day.
You're so chill. I can't. There's nobody better to be manning a climbing gym. I don't feel like than you. But I want to pose to you a question, or I don't know. It was a kind of a wild tangent that we went down for a little bit about grading and kind of gym grading culture on old school gyms versus modern gyms versus outdoors. I can just speak from my experience. Like I got so humbled from the climbs, the grades, the angles of the walls, all of that at Rocksport when I first started going there. But then ultimately was very grateful for that experience when I started climbing more out at the Red, and I felt very well prepared. And so while I might get absolutely smacked down by a V3 at Rocksport and flash a V6 at a different, commercial or more modern gym or something like that.
Yeah.
I always felt grateful for it when I went outside. Some people don't go outside, but for Rocksport, famously sandbagged Rocksport, what's the plan going forward as you're setting routes right now?
I yanked down the grade conversion chart that I found that stated, at least the way I read it, like, what was it? V1 equaled 12A.
That's about right.
Maybe I read it wrong, but I'll change that, for sure. But I think that, like trying to present grades that closely resemble an outdoor area close to your gym is a great approach. But in reality, it's a closed environment. So you set your own grade system. So it could differ from a different closed environment, a different gym. And, as long as there's like a clear progression in the grades, I feel like, and consistency within whatever your grade scale is, like if a grade scale is shifting, that's maybe not good for your people that care about grades. Not everybody does,
Speaking of like membership and the financial side, obviously you haven't even reopened the doors yet, but there's been some pressure. I spoke with Garnet Moore, who's the executive director of the Climbing Wall Association. He was talking about how in the last couple of years, there's been a bit of a flattening with regard to growth in gym revenue, as well as just in the sport in general. And actually, he cited as an example, as odd as it might seem, competition from other sports that are also kind of lifestyle activities, like pickleball. So he said, oddly enough, pickleball is a competition for climbing gyms because people are finding that's a way to get together and socialize and have fun, and they don't have time for both.
Yeah. How are you getting the pickleballers is really the question. How are you getting those pickleball people?
Sounds like we need a pickleball court in the parking lot.
Yeah.
There's some grassy field. Does it work on grass? We might be looking down that avenue now that you say it. It's like the fastest growing sport or something, isn't it?
Right. That's right.
Yeah, no, this is a great question, and I definitely don't have all the answers for that yet. First, I got to get the doors open.
For a friend out here, amazing, 514 plus climber. He tore his Achilles tendon playing tennis. So I think pickleball is the same thing, but you got to be careful with, if you're introducing pickleball, you could, sideline.
Hurt your members.
Yeah, hurt your members pretty quickly.
Well, but I think actually there could be this could be a shrewd business move, because if you set up like an area where it's like campus only climbs, so everybody with lower extremity injuries from pickleball could come in, there could be a play there.
Right.
Or a hangboard room.
Yeah, just a training center for people with bum legs. It's the pickleball to hangboard pipeline.
It's what all climbers dream of. Like, if we need to get injured, we hope for the lower extremity injury so we can keep training our precious fingers. Well, dude, thank you so much for just like hopping on this thing and and also just, for you and your partners for taking a big swing on this place. Like, I'm sure it was a pretty stressful decision to take on a business like that and everything that goes along with it. But you're keeping Louisville's only rope gym alive, which for me as a Red River Gorge climber is very meaningful. But I think also it's a really special experience for those who don't even have aspirations to get outside. When I bring my kids there, to get them on a rope, whether it's an auto belay or a top rope, and have them feel that exposure, that height, and the joy that they feel when they get to the top of a 35-foot wall, and then they get to bounce down it or take the elevator ride on the auto belay. It's a very different experience than just like playing around on some easy boulders. And so I'm sure it's going to take quite a bit of work, but I think it's really meaningful what you and your partners are doing. I'm grateful for it, man.
Thanks. Yeah. We'll be grateful to see you there.
Yeah. I guess the question is, will you ever be able to get outside again now that you own a gym?
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's the plumber with the leaky faucet, man. You're just going to be out. You're just going to be setting routes for us all the time. Well, dude, thank you. We'll let you get. It sounds like the kids are still awake at 10:20. So good luck, man. But I'll see you this weekend at the gym.
All right. See ya. See you guys.
See you, Andrew. It's good to see you, man.
Chris and Andrew, let's stick around for a second. We'll put a cherry on this thing. I'm curious, what you guys feel. You've both worked at gyms and you've had local gyms that have been around or closed. Have you ever been approached to open a gym or be a part owner of a gym like our friend Andrew Gearing, or do you aspire to that at all?
It happens like once a week, but then people look at my bank account and they see how bad I am with running a business, and they're like, no, we'll be taking our investment funds elsewhere.
Yeah, it's the old adage of, how you become a millionaire in the climbing business, start out as a billionaire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, we have this weird problem where we live, where the real estate is so expensive and the population is so low that the normal gym business model just doesn't work.
We're still in a place where the gym is a substitute. And so, you get uptick in business in the winter, and then in the summer it's pretty dead, or it's like people are after work in it. But if you have the doors open all day, which I think part of the problem, I mean, there was a bunch of problems with the one here, but that was one of the problems, is like you have to kind of have it open, but you're staffing it for, a couple people to come in over several hours until the evening. And it's not enough. There's like a lot of climbers, but I go back to that idea that you need to, if you open a gym, your primary purpose is to bring new climbers into your gym. You can't survive on the climbing community because they're fickle. And like I said, they'll go outside and, they'll nickel and dime you, and they'll, do the math on all your types of passes and make sure that they're not spending 1 cent more on the wrong type of pass for them for that time of year. And they want to pause it, and they, get pissed because their day pass is expired that they didn't use last year. Like that can't be a clientele to run a gym on. It just can't,
It's not their fault.
No, I know.
Yeah. It's not like malice or anything like that. It's just like the nature of,
But is that the message to the crusty climbers that are listening right now, which is just like, support your gym, keep your pass going. Don't pause it for the 1 month.
Yes. I mean, I don't think it's their fault, Andrew, but you can, you can participate in a way that is that, it's like I when I heard it was opening and I've always wanted a gym here, I was like, cool, I'm buying the annual pass. How much is it?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot. for a gym, but I was like, I'm buying it because I've been wanting this gym here, and I bitch about not having a gym here, and so I'm doing that. And we have this modernization of climbing where there's a lot more money in it. It's not all a bunch of dirt bags, and those gyms, those big gyms work because this person who's got a 9-to-5 job, and their EFT coming out of their account is irrelevant to them, and like I said, it's the climbers who are like the road dirtbag climbers who are like, well, I got to find some way to pause this, and I have to do, and none of those people care. I mean, even in recreation, because of the clientele that was there, like, we had people who had ongoing memberships that we'd never see because they just freaking forgot about them, right?
The best. Those are the best
$35 a month or whatever that came out of their account. They're like, 3 years later, like, what is this? Like literally I'd get calls. What are you? And we're like, we're that climbing gym. And like, oh, that's right. I did sign up for that, and it was like 3 years ago.
That just reminded me, my wife's mother called my wife up, like, I don't know, not too long ago, a few years ago. And she was like, do you still use your AOL email? She'd been paying for like this like AOL account for like the last 20 years. My wife was like, no, I do not.
Yeah, by the
do
way,
not check AOL.
What's that money going to? Like AOL went out of business like a decade ago. Somebody's just getting that money.
Yeah, that's it. I have a whole story around a phone, because you used to actually rent your phone from the phone company,
right?
From Bell. You part of your deal was you were paying for that phone. And my dad, well into the era of going to the mall and buying a phone, and then into cell phone era, he had this landline that literally he had paid over the lifetime of it thousands and thousands of dollars for
a
like
$10 phone.
Yeah. I said that in wherever that collection place was, they had like one of those like running numbers on the wall, and it was like Dave Kalous, and it was like the tally for the phone that they'd rented him in like 1977 that he was still paying for, and it was just rolling money. Every time it would go up, everybody would cheer. Yeah.
Amazing.
Anyhow,
well,
that's old school.
May that be our Patreon accounts for years to come, boys.
That's right. We could just stop putting out episodes, but somebody's going to keep paying us. All right, there you have it. Please give us all your money right now. Give it to us all over on Patreon. Check out the Runout as well as the Struggle. And Andrew and Chris, thank you so much, dudes. Love hanging out with those guys. Such good guys. They are putting fantastic stuff out over on their shows, which I'm sure you already listened to. And such a joy to hang out with you. And then Andrew, thank you for joining. And thank you for saving my sweet, beloved Rock Sport climbing gym. I was just looking through a bunch of pictures of my kids over the years there. My kids have grown up at that gym, and just like little 3-year-old Junie swinging on a rope in the lead cave and topping out her first route on top rope, and then climbing like sick overhung sport routes. She's like a total crusher now, and all of that is because of Rock Sport. So I'm grateful, Andrew, to you and to your partners who are taking on the new grand reopening / resurrection of Rock Sport from a great crew that came before. Kit Winger was the general manager for the last transition of years under new ownership after Rob passed away, and the torch has been passed on to a great new crew here, and those of us in Louisville are very lucky to have it. By the way, if you are listening in the Louisville area or just the Kentucky area, please consider grabbing an annual pass or at least a monthly pass. But I would go annual. Just make your commitment to a local climbing gym that's got great history. Help them get started on the right foot, get them the funds to make the gym awesome for all of us and for generations to come. And if you're listening to this elsewhere, just, there's probably a Rock Sport near you. Find that crusty climbing gym, give them some love, and find that mega gym, that Axiom ship from Wall-E, and give them some love too, because I don't want to make them out to be the bad guy, as you heard in this conversation. There's such great things to be gleaned and experienced in both kinds of climbing gyms. And while the smaller ones are maybe less well-funded and need a little bit more love to keep the doors open from time to time, the bigger ones also need a lot of people to come in and establish community there and climb great routes and set great routes. So basically just support your climbing gyms and get after it, and then hopefully get outside. Don't listen to Chris. Don't listen to Chris about the Crag to Gym program. I want you to join the Gym to Crag program. Get outside. It's so wonderful outside. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube or over on Patreon. And I'd love to hear from you. This show is all about community, and I just get so psyched. Somebody just sent me a message recently. They're in their 50s, and for the first time in 20 years, they climbed 512D, which was the hardest grade that they had ever climbed. That's a 7C for those listening in other areas. And their new goal now is 7C plus or 513A. And I was just like so hyped to hear from them. They just kind of shared their story, and it fueled me when I got outside, which is just recently. I got back outside and sent a fun little like ongoing mini life proj sport route, and then made some major links on Bulldog, on the V8 Boulder project. And so I will tell you all about that in detail on the monthly plog that'll be coming out in just like a week and a half. At the end of the month here, I will release the plog. So until then, have an awesome day. I hope your training and your climbing are going great. Shout out to Glenn and Haley and Philippa for helping me to make this. Shout out to the Honnold Foundation for keeping it carbon neutral all of these years. To the sponsors who were not included in this episode, but who will be included in other episodes because you are awesome sponsors. I love you so much. And to you for just being a friggin' awesome crusher. I hope you're getting after it, and I'll see you soon.